both the sides would have come out if Take One had even remotely tried to give a proper coverage of what was happening in Jammu. This I bring to notice because some newspapers, mercifully, and that is true, in 2008, even some of the Indian newspapers did try and highlight a very significant issue. Two issues. One is the Amarnath issue had to do with forest land transfer, not just a mere land transfer. It was forest land transfer, which was read as setting a precedent, a legal precedent for alienation of forest land in Kashmir to non-state subjects. The second issue, which is we lose sight of it, the economic embargo imposed on Kashmir by the Jammu agitation, which was supported by the state, because it refused to intervene in that matter. The army did not intervene, the CRPF did not intervene, the J&K police did not intervene to break that embargo. And in fact, that economic embargo is an act of war under international law, especially for a variety of reasons, whether Indians like it or not. Kashmir is both an international as well, a regional as well as a domestic issue. And these three linkages we cannot ignore. Under all norms of international conflicts, even, laws which apply to non-international conflicts, economic embargo is an act of war. Nobody took it as an act of war. Nobody even highlighted this fact. So the imbalance in reporting comes out. The third point I want to make, and this brings out, I think, the complexity of the issue, is, hostage. This year, in February, some 5 policemen were taken hostage by the Maoists in January by the Maoists in Chhattisgarh. They released a 11-point charter of demands which actually listed and highlighted the kind of problems that the Adivasis are facing in this area. And in fact, they pointed out a variety of issues. Right? They put up posters in all this area. Now, because these were 5 constables, ordinary policemen, neither the state, because there is a class also which operates, neither the state nor the police department showed much interest for getting them released. Maoists then decided to contact my organization, the People's Union for Democratic Rights, and then Swami Agnivesh, and they said if we could come and they are willing to hand over these hostages to us, because they fear that if they were to release them, there is enough possibility that these 5 would be liquidated by the cops and they would be put on the head of the Maoists. They said, why don't you come and we'll hand you over this. I said, fine. We went there. While we were on our way to come to this area, we passed through a small city called Kamke, where the journalist stopped us and they submitted a memorandum to us, a copy of a memorandum which had been submitted to the state government, which highlighted the kind of problems that the reporters and the journalists were facing in this area who were reporting. They also listed the killing of 2 journalists in this area in the last 2 years, which has taken place in Chhattisgarh. The threats which are being meted out to some of the journalists openly by the cops or the authorities or the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, as well as the state-backed Salva-Judu, the most fascist group which was let loose in Bastar. When we proceeded the next day, all this time we knew that there were a lot of journalists who had surrounded us and who were accompanying us all the time. We knew that, and they kept on asking, they wanted to know where we were going to go, which place we would be visiting for the handover and things like that. We kept this information to ourselves and refused to part with it because we did not know who was an agent working for the cops in disguise of a journalist, because that has happened. If Tiger Masood is killed or Chhatrar Mahato was arrested by cops pretending to be by journalists, it's an open game. Anybody could pretend to be a journalist, so we did not part with this information. We were misled also by the local journalists. Instead of pointing in the right direction in the forest road where we should have gone, they took us in another direction. We lost a lot of time, which meant that by the time we arrived at the spot, it was already, the sun had set, it was dark. Journalists, as usual, were in a hurry to get the hostages released, that whole ceremony over, so that they could rush back and file the reports. Whereas we insisted, no. The whole idea was that we would have the hostages handed over, but at the same time we'll listen to the villagers and their account of what they were complaining, which was part of the 11-point charter demands that the Maoists made. They stopped reluctantly. They all took coverage of this, and the people came and spoke and gave details of what had happened, whose family members had been arrested, who had been put in jail, no charges filed, how difficult, and how they were narrating all these difficulties. Lo and behold, when we were returning, none of this, of course, was flashed in the electronic channels. None of the print media which was present there carried this report. Not because some of them did not file the report, but because the newspapers thought that this was of no relevance. Okay? That the hostage issue was the most important. What the villagers had to say was insignificant. At the same time, we were also told that all the journalists and electronic channels in particular, who had taken shots of the gathering, one of the chaps told us, he said, I can bet any amount that the CDs, the recordings of all this would be handed over to the police, and within 15 days you'll find a crackdown taking place in the areas, and the people who had gathered would be picked up when they were visiting the village weekly hart or weekly bazaar market to buy provisions. Now the point I'm trying to make with the hostage issue is that the reporting is not as if reporters are always at the fault, nor is it that the reporters are always lily white. It's little more complex than that, and it's very difficult to find whether his reportage has been distorted, suppressed, or that is the actual report that he filed on the basis of a story that was provided to him by the agencies operating in those areas. So it's a very difficult thing. So I mean, while we were there, we were accompanied, and we thought that the presence of media and electronic channels would enable us to highlight a much larger issue, which deserved to be highlighted: the overcrowding of jails 3 times than the size, the fact that these are poor Adivasis who have been foisted with cases where they're not even being produced before the magistrate every 15 days because the police cites this argument that these are dreaded Maoists for which we require security cordon, and we lack the kind of personnel which is required to take them from the jail to the magistrate in another district. So all these issues never highlighted, and I'll end by pointing out that when the Malkangiri case hostage crisis took place, and the Maoists kidnapped the district magistrate. Thank God it was the district magistrate. The whole country was up in arms because it was an Indian Administrative Service cadre officer posted there. So the government of India, the state was shaken. They did not mind that these 5 cops had been liquidated. They did not give a damn. But the district magistrate and the whole media descended there. People who did not know, the electronic channels and print media who did not know where Siluri Dam was, which had been constructed 30 years back. 25,000 people had been displaced. They suddenly discovered Malkangiri and they descended there in hordes, went back in 24 hours, and lo and behold, the larger issue of displacement, of the suffering of the displaced people who had not been rehabilitated for 30-35 years. The plight of the Adivasis whose land had been usurped 6 or 7 decades back, on which they were working as bonded labor. All those issues got suppressed. Because why? Because the state had got its IAS officer back. The national media had covered the hostage crisis, which was a national crisis because a senior IAS officer had been, and everyone went back happy. And those issues got suppressed thanks to the fact that the negotiations had taken place, and the negotiations started putting pressure on them, and the Maoists refused to come out of the jail. They said, we are not going to come out until all the Adivasis who have been arrested are released first, and they still remain behind bars. They have refused to come out until all the Adivasis have come out. Because of this and the pressure from the civil society primarily, and not so much from the media, which failed to highlight and take this issue further. I think so there are many sides to the story. And it gets little more complex in our conflict situation where biases. I'm not against biases. I believe the biases, partisanship also allows for truth to come out somehow. Because if you are an honest, and there I agree with you, it depends on quality reportage. If you have, whether you are partisan or biased, doesn't matter. It's your quality reportage, you will not suppress certain facts. You may give it a different slant, but you will not be allowed, you will not suppress those facts. And I think that is very important. Quality reportage is what is important, no matter which side you favor. Because that still allows the readers and the consumers to take a position and read things and make sense of it on their own.
Our friend there, you cited the name of this woman. Why did you cite her name? She is a raped woman.
Sorry?
Exactly as Babita said, the question she posed is, how do you ensure confidentiality? No, please let me finish now. How do you ensure confidentiality and so forth? Now, one of the very recognized principles is you don't name a raped victim. And I do recognize that the circumstances are very, very complex. And here, after all, I'm never going to meet her. She's not, so it doesn't, but I think we need to, if there is a principle, and I think it's a principle that is worthy to have been embedded in our journalistic ethics, raped victims must not be named, even if they live in a remote village and the name will appear in the national press. It's a principle that one has to respect. Let me just leave it at that. Let me finish and the other quick thing is, which has been going around the table, and that is what the debate that you started, which is the consumer is not a receiver, the consumer is in fact equally an actor, or not, is also an actor. And the dilemma that that Mazhar and you raised, which is that here you have not a very contradictory publics, and how do you, and you in fact resolve the problem yourself to ensure, as you said, that both stories, both versions are prioritized and so forth. But there is a problem, and as we know that, the way that in fact it's reported, having worked much more with the Nagas than with the Meiteis, I would, the bias is certainly there. It's a question of, if the Meiteis have 4 newspapers, the Nagas have only 1. And where are the Naga papers as far as Manipur is concerned? So in a sense, they get shortchanged. But on the, with the consumer as receiver also imposing, and this is where I think the positive aspect does come into play. In the Gujarat coverage, when the newspaper editors, and as you know, the Gujarat coverage of the Godhra and the post-Godhra violence was, you had the newspapers playing and the press council did this study, and they said it was very biased, very prejudiced coverage, and sensationalized and drove the violence further. Now, in it, the editors were asked this question, and it's part of the press council report, and they said, but listen, don't you recognize that you have Muslim readers? Because the argument they made was that our readers, our Hindu readers, they will not accept anything other than this, that they demand this. So the question that was raised was, and it was Dilip Padganga who asked it, he said, but you got Muslim readers as well. And frankly, there was this sudden silence, and subsequently they said, yes, we have a very, very large group of Muslim readers, and you did find that there was a change, because you don't want to lose that readership. After all, they are part of what brings in the revenues as well. So, and many of us have often argued that if in fact Indian and Pakistani newspaper exchanges would be more, then, and we were aware that each other was reading each other's newspapers or watching each other's channels, there would be greater sensitivity in a more balanced type of reporting.
links, because you said there are a number of there are about 300 newspapers are coming from the valley, but at the same time that there is no reportage. Mostly there is statements of one leader or another leader, and that is the lead news. And what has happened over the years, and that is a grave concern that should be to news reporters and newspaper editors at the same time, that it is the social media that has taken over. So what you don't find in the newspapers, you find it in Facebook. And the state has been very proactive to deal with the Facebook. And in fact, last year, 2 boys were arrested and then subsequently put under the preventive detention law for posting anti-state material on the Facebook. Say it is not fit for the state, and it is great problems for the state, and it brings people on the streets. And recently, there were some uploads that were on the Facebook recently carried, and they say it was they brought certain anti-Islamic, some sort of a pages were on Facebook. So what the state now is, it wrote to the Home Ministry whether we should say impose ban on Facebook in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and the Chief Minister responded to that we are not banning it. We are certain pages we will ban it. There are certain institutions in the state of Jammu and Kashmir where you don't write against. Say in case of Kashmir University, because that gives a lot of advertisement to the newspapers, you don't write against them. There was one, say, sort of a concert in the Kashmir University. There was a campaign in the Facebook that it should not happen there because it is being projected as a sort of a peace discourse of the state. So the campaign, there was no reportage in newspapers, but campaign that the event didn't take place. There was another event, that Jaipur Book Festival, it had to be taken into the Srinagar, but there was campaign against it in Srinagar because it was again projected as a peace project, that this year it has been peace and then there has to be a book festival here in the city in Srinagar. So again a campaign in a Facebook, and the organizers felt that there will be some serious response to it, they cancelled it. So what I'm saying is that the role of the media, the responsibility of the media, certain coverage of the media which was responsible to the reporters to take it or newspapers to take it, it has been taken by the people on the Facebook, and they are writing and reporting it, and that has become the major concern for the state. And state is now acting on those people. They say, in fact, that the number of columns were written in, they say Facebook activists or revolutionaries who want to change or who want to bring, they want that people should come on the streets and pelt stones, and they will write it on the Facebook. They have become the idealist Facebook ideologues. But still, that has become the concern for the state, not the newspapers. In fact, they have tamed the newspapers, but not on the social media.
Everybody would agree that it's time to act now. Coming to Felix, I think you said there's a change in behavior of consumer. Yeah. I would agree to this change in Europe and the USA, but we have such a huge mass of volume which is still illiterate, and they are coming up to literacy. They are learning the ropes still. So that's why the print media is still picking up, and it is the same people who are at the cutting edge of conflict. People who are accessing internet or who are on the Facebook. I'm sorry, they are not in the nowhere do they figure in the conflict. They would not be even a fraction of what conflict is. They can make a voice, okay, discussion, coffee table, that's it. But people who suffer, I'm talking about, I don't know, I'm not ready to accept it, that a guy in Kashmir Valley, he read something on the Facebook and started pelting stones. I don't accept it that kid would even have an access to a computer. So that's it. Competition, as far as competition has led, we have recent example that Aishwarya Rai delivering her baby was not breaking news. Yeah, the news broke. It fell. When you said about those suicide cases, yeah, I had to talk to them. I had to talk to them in their lingo. I actually talked to them. I wasn't going, I didn't have that notebook with me, I had another guy with me who was writing down names for me. I was talking to them, what happened, why did it happen. They refused to accept that it was a suicide. I kept on talking to them, then finally, 1 hour them, when the media started pouring in and started, oh, kya hua, that's like, if you can talk to us, your problems can be sorted out. And when the bureaucrats and the politicians, they started coming up with what is this? Why do you tell the newspapers? Why don't you tell us? We will sort it out. We will sort out your problems. Then they started opening up. So that is how you talk to them. When those people in the villages, they read your eyes like anything. They know you are with them or you are against them. You just talk to them, look to them in the eyes. If you are genuine about your work, you believe in your work, I think people will respond to you. And then about a word about sensationalism. Okay, I started that yesterday. I stand by it. My issue, okay, there is a division. Sensationalizing an issue which is serious, which concerns a lot of people, I will go by it. When I was doing the suicide stories, people said that you are sensationalizing the suicide. Somebody even said that you are romanticizing suicides. Okay, you have your opinion. I stand by mine. I will go with my word. You please do what your word is. Problem is when as media we sensationalize trivia, which does not concern people. Okay, the government is sensationalizing them. You are giving credence to people who are posting on Facebook. Okay, on my Facebook I have about 700 people. I posted, none of them, not even 70 of them read it. So it's non-serious people. And now then we focus, the government focuses on Facebook, and now Facebook becomes a sensation. That is to be avoided. If people have started committing suicide, then we have female feticide, and you have to make a noise. You have to make a noise. That is what that is our the Indian national leader Bhagat Singh. He threw a bomb into in the Lahore assembly, not to kill people, to create a sensation. Listen to us. And the latest bomb we have in media is okay, sensation. Like you make a noise, we will rattle these people out into their senses. I think that is it. I think we wrap up this session with thanks to FES. Thanks to Dr. Dayal, and thanks to the International Center for this lovely opportunity we could discuss media.